No, not really.
Okay, we're on. Tell me who you are, Bob.
Hey, folks, how are you? Welcome to the Wild Bob and Ronnie show. We've got our resident genius with us today, Mr. R.L. Henson. We're tickled to death to be coming to you from way up in the northeastern part of Tennessee, U.S. of A. And we're pleased to be here with you, and we're going to be here carrying on hopefully some knowledgeable stuff with somewhat of a country flavor and a backyard twist to it, you know, just about like raising them chickens in the backyard.
You ever find your goat?
Yeah. She hides that baby goat somewhere. You know, I got a little baby goat out back. I can go out there and I've got a fenced-in lot with no obstructions, no briar patches, no nothing. I can look everywhere and I cannot find that baby goat. I come back a little while, he'll be out running around.
You ain't got a kangaroo for a mommy, have you?
A wallaby.
Yeah,
I thought I had kangaroos when they kept getting out.
You may have a possum.
Yeah.
They're marsupials too.
Yeah, I know they are. Yeah, they sure are. You know, not only are they marsupials, but they have them babies, you know, stored in that little pouch where they nurse them.
Yeah.
Well, them little goats are about the cutest things there ever was.
Here, Jerry Kidd sent me this. It's why that the Jewish girls don't have to wear burqas.
Expanding tip.
Now,
rounds.
Tell me about the upgrade.
I listened to part of it, and I just heard it. It was a talk show, and a caller called in, and the caller had done some of the writing on one of the permits, as my understanding was, not permits, regulations or laws, and this was being changed out. It's what you refer to as the Barney Fife law.
Right.
And somehow this is changing that around to where that there's a different condition as per to do with your ammo, whether the ammo doesn't have to be stored in some other area or something along those lines. And I'm not up on the bill. He gave a number, and I didn't get it written down, a Tennessee code annotated, but it had to do, the way he stated as best I can understand, that there's one sentence in that Tennessee code annotated. If they would remove that one sentence, it would change the whole meaning of the thing.
Well, I heard that, and what was he talking about? If you hauled a gun to school,
right,
and you didn't work there and you left it in the car, it's legal, but as soon as you got off school grounds, if you're still hauling it, it was illegal.
That's correct. Somehow in there, it's, you know how these laws get all
Now, they had a court case several years ago where they stopped this guy, and he was driving on a marked road through a school zone, and they stopped him, and because he had a gun in the trunk, they charged him with a felony for carrying a gun in a school zone.
Yeah, well, that was the fellow that pulled up and went to sleep down there in that schoolyard, and that happened in North Carolina. They charged him, but he was going to the coast to deer hunt.
You know, he was also, wasn't on school property, was he? He was on the road. He was just inside the school zone.
Right. Yeah, I know that. He pulled over to catch him a few winks, you know, before he went on down. He was actually down there in the same town that John Edwards was from.
I knew it had something to do with North Carolina, but go on.
John Edwards, I mean, there was one down there, and there may be another one, you know.
Well, I know they charged this guy, and he went all the way to the Supreme Court, and they said you cannot interfere with commerce. That's what you're doing on this public road. If you tell this man he can't have a gun,
right,
and you can say you can't take it to school, but you can't say you can't drive through a school zone because that's the only road there.
Right.
Well, because it was a school zone did not mean that the school owned the property. The roadway was still a public roadway, whether it was owned by state or city, most likely city, could have been state as well. But the school, the only thing the school authority they would have would be control the traffic as far as speed and whatever's concerned. Anything else on there would be controlled
Well, now the state wouldn't, the school wouldn't control the speed, and that would be the
city,
the highway patrol, or whoever
had jurisdiction
over that section. And also thereby it would be the highway patrol, anything that would have to charge someone as far as a gun violation is concerned, but it could not be for being on school property.
Georgia has got a bill that's moving up as far as gun privileges, and this the change to theirs would allow you to have your weapon if you'd asked permission, of course, to be permitted and whatever, in other places such as city council meetings and whatever else, and it kind of...
You better not go where they got a gun.
Yeah, and of course there might be a lot more respect shown in the meetings. It also, the police, like in bars and places like that, you'd still, Hooters is what they used as a location as an example. And the police said that they would have to be kind of on alert when they went in, which I don't see anything wrong with that. It's supposed to be on alert at all times anyway.
If they got any heads on them, they are.
Yeah,
if they're going to keep it attached.
Yeah.
Well, I know guns present problems to the authorities, mainly because it keeps them from being the absolute authority. And just like jury nullification, you've got Smith & Wesson nullification in a lot of instances. And I'm not advocating that be your way of settling a dispute. But you take in the case of these countries over in let's take the case of Ukraine over there. I understand that their citizens are armed, and that Russia does not want to get into a guerrilla warfare in the Ukraine.
They learned that in Afghanistan, didn't they?
They learned.
They didn't teach us nothing.
Right. Well, you don't ever, if you're going to fight somebody, don't fight their type of fight.
Yeah, that didn't work out too good for the British. Now, here's the thing about it. I have heard this attributed to Yamamoto, I think. Let's see if I can find that. Anyway, one of the Japanese generals or something or other said that they didn't want to invade the mainland USA because there's too many people there shooting back at them. Everybody there had a gun.
Right.
See if I can find it. We know in a historical context that Japan was considered an invasion of the landmass of the United States of America, but they were afraid to, and the reason they were afraid to is because they knew that every American is armed, and although they were not afraid of our armies, they were afraid of our citizens.
I think that would be a deterrent. I mentioned before, I don't know what I did on this show or not, if
you mentioned it right after you dropped your gun that
if
day.
Mike Tyson walks down a street, there's not too many people pick a fight with him. But you have some wimp walk down the street and see if everybody don't jump on him. Well, that's the way it is in international politics. If you're strong and you are maybe a little bit unforgiving, or you may be a little bit hard to figure out, I don't know whether you will or whether you won't, ain't nobody gonna jump on you. But Russia, even, you know, NATO is probably 10 times stronger than Russia, other than the atomic factor.
Well, you're going to have to remember that probably wouldn't nobody fight with NATO but us, and maybe the British and the Aussies and the Canadians, if we could get them three to join in.
Yeah, but it would be hard to get some of those countries to fight, even if they were the ones being invaded.
Well, you're talking about France again now.
Well, now the reason they never declared the war on terror a world war is because they're waiting for France to surrender.
They had to
and
wait
when
on France to
surrenders, then we will declare it a world war.
Anything else you'd like to add to this pointless conversation?
Well, I'm cranking things through my head, and there's all sorts of things we can philosophize on as far as weaponry and all this stuff. It seems to me like most people are not thinking there would be another war as to what we've had in the past, where we have ground troops, small arms, and all this stuff. But if your enemy soaks into the general population, that's about the only way you defend yourself to a certain extent, because if you don't, you can't use weapons of mass destruction. Because
unless you're Syria.
Yeah, well, okay, there's exceptions to that.
What we'll do, we'll just let Al Sharpton infiltrate these guys, and we'll know when they're going to do something.
I heard, is he not having some problems or something?
Yeah, he got in with that other mafia, not the gay mafia.
He got
but
in
that
with the other.
Well, you know, he also owes the government $1.3 million in taxes. Delinquent taxes.
I don't like these guys that want the government to pay for everything, won't pay their taxes. That's my gripe with Willie Nelson.
Yeah.
He's a socialist, but he don't want to pay his taxes.
Oh boy.
Willie had better use for that money.
Well, I guess he did, and I appreciate that, and I'm all for him keeping his money if he quit trying to get me to spend mine on his stuff.
Yeah, I owed him. I paid like, I forget how many thousands of dollars one year in taxes. They told me I owed them 6,000 some odd cents on a nickel.
Yeah.
And the guy come out there, and I paid him that in cash. And he got ready to go. He said, "You didn't give me the nickel." I said, "Yeah, I did, dude." "No, you didn't." He's looking everywhere. He says, "I need a nickel." I said, "Look," I said, "Before you come out here, I had to make a decision whether I was going to pay you or whether I was going to shoot you." I told him, I said, "That nickel just might tip the scale." He says, "Oh, I found it."
Let me tell you one. Back several years ago, old man had paid his sales tax, and he was a nickel short. He'd failed to write the check for that other nickel, somewhere or another. Maybe it was 30, and he wrote it for 25. Anyway, he's a nickel short. At that time, their guy that watched these things lived in Jellicoe, and he come over here and showed the old man, said, "You owe us a nickel on your taxes." And Pop just got a nickel out of the cash register and started to hand it to him. He said, "No, I can't take a nickel." Said, "I have to have a check." He said, "You got to write me a check to the Tennessee sales tax people." And then he told Pop, he said, "Do you actually think I would have drove over here if I could have used a nickel? I'd have put one in myself."
It's amazing where we've got to, isn't it?
Yep.
It's amazing. I hear that Oak Ridge now has voted to do away with their traffic light signal or cameras.
Yeah.
And I heard that they got into a heated discussion. I don't understand what the whole discussion was about, but it seemed like that certain members there wanted to keep these traffic light
Cliff
cameras.
Jennings live in Oak Ridge.
Cliff Jennings, is that the guy that wanted to put them in up here in La Follette?
Cliff
Okay.
Jennings.
Yeah, okay.
I seem to remember a Cliff Jennings.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
I
I'm
remember
going to tell you
like
about
that.
Cliff here in just a minute.
I think he never met a tax he didn't like.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll bring Cliff. I'm going to bring Cliff back up here in just a minute.
Oh yeah, that Cliff
Yeah, they
Jennings.
had some heated discussion. One guy who works for the city sent an email and said that everybody on the city council was a nincompoop and something
Yeah.
and everything.
Yeah.
So they got a something up to relieve him of his duties and to bar him from ever working for the city of Oak Ridge again. You know, but you know.
Well, why do they think they do all every penny they can rake out of the public and think we ought to be happy about it? You know, what gets me about these traffic cameras and stuff like that, besides the fact that I don't think they make life any safer, and I think they may cause more.
I think that was the reason for it.
I think they may cause more wrecks than they prevent. But what really gets me is they don't get to keep but just a small portion of what they steal from, what they confiscate from the people.
Yeah.
If they got to keep it, it'd at least make a little more
mention
sense.
this again, you know, back when David Young and Cliff Jennings had this scheme to put new traffic signals here in La Pollock, which I don't think either one of us would say that we get through La Pollock any quicker now than we did before we changed the traffic signal. But we knew what it was for the whole time, and I approached Cliff Jennings at the flea market, and I said, Cliff, I said, are you planning on putting traffic cameras on these new street lights that you're going to install? He says, just as fast as I can. That's his exact word. I said, well, are they going to work just like the ones doing Knoxville? He says, well, I hope so. I said, well, in Knoxville, they collected $600,000 in fines. They sent $400,000 to the picture taking company and kept $200. Cliff says, well, it's all pure profit.
Well, what some people don't realize, they never understand that the economy works like a pump. And if you're taking $400,000 out of the local economy and sending it out of state, and then getting the $200,000 off of the people and spending it back in the same place, you're losing $400,000 a month in stuff that would be turned over anyway.
That was 6 months, wasn't it?
Well, whatever you said.
Yeah, 6 months.
Now, another thing. You're talking about lights. Either one of you fellas go through Carrollville last week?
I did.
I can't recall.
And they had the light a flashing?
Yeah.
I didn't see a bit of problem.
It worked perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but see, that little Carrollville's finest was sitting there and figuring out some way how he could fine you for running a caution light.
Well, now I'm telling you, I drove out there 3 or 4 times, and I was amazed at how fast I could get from one place to the other. That was the day we went down through Cherry Bottom, going down there to eat, and got apprehended for not having a seatbelt on. But when he got there, we had seatbelts on. You know how that goes.
Did they stop you for not having seatbelts on?
Yeah.
And you were in the blue truck or what?
Yeah.
Okay.
But when he got there, me and Ike both had seatbelts on.
Why?
And he wrote him a warning ticket. Wrote Ike a warning ticket. He wasn't driving. Checked his driver's license. He wasn't driving.
Why?
I don't know.
Question.
Yeah.
Did he use the driver's license for the information to write the citation?
So he say he did, yeah.
Okay. Question, what if he had not had driver's license? How would he have wrote that citation?
I know. That's the question I got. And wasn't he supposed to cite me instead of the passenger anyway?
Good point. I don't really know. I don't know what the status of that would be.
I had one guy tell me that if you were of age, if you were an adult, and you had to carry identification, and I don't think that's correct.
I'm not, at one time, you were required, if you were over the age of 18, to have your draft status.
Yeah.
You had to have that at that time. We don't have draft now.
They don't even give you a draft card.
That's correct, but yet you do have to sign for selective service, regardless. That's interesting. Do the women have to sign up also? I mean, for selective service, even though there's not a draft either for male or female.
I don't think. No, Tommy didn't.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's discrimination, ain't it?
That's interesting.
That's not equal pay for equal duty or anything.
But the camera, well, it's been pretty much a proven fact here by default that traffic does move better without traffic lights through this town. Now, I don't know whether it would work in all towns, but there's a good chance that you could eliminate a lot of traffic lights. Now, traffic lights, okay, I'm going to back up to the same whenever the interstate was down, of course. When they put the traffic lights on caution, traffic moved far better and far less accidents.
And I was somewhere a while back, and they had in the center of town, they didn't have a traffic light, but they had a circle. Mm-hmm. And you just get on there and get off at your road, and you never did have to stop. But it was slower for me because I had to go around there 3 times to figure out where to get off at.
To get in the right lane?
You about like my wife over in London, up there at Trafalgar Square, they've got a circle. And they were going to go out in the country somewhere and do something. And of course, she owned the wrong side of the road to start with, and the turn wheel was on the wrong side of the road. And she was never noted to be a tremendous driver anyhow. Well, she got on that circle and burned a half tank of gas out trying to figure out how to get over and get off on that exit.
Well, I can understand that. If you're going, it depends on which way the circles are going. If I was on the outside, you'd be on the outside of the circle, wouldn't you?
Right.
Won't you just exit to the left?
Well, yeah, I don't know, but she couldn't get over it. I don't know what it was. They laughed about it for years about that. But the best one I heard was about this fellow went up to New York City to visit with his son.
Yeah.
And he finally made his ways to his son's house, and he spent 2 or 3 days up there. And when he got ready to leave, he told his son, says, "Now you're going to have to tell me how to get out of here." He says, "Well, I'm going to lead you down to the ramp that goes up to the highway, okay?" He says, "Now, if you enter there, you're going to have to immediately cross 3 lanes of traffic and get in the left-hand lane so you can go left where the road splits." He says, "Now, if you go up on that exit and you can't get over 4 lanes, so you go up and go back down around and come back up again." Well, Grandpa was getting some age on him, about like me, so he goes up there, and the first time he goes up there, here comes a fire truck with all the people following him. So he can't get over because they're in a different lane there. So he goes down around. He comes back up, and the next time here come a whole convoy of trucks. So he has to stay in that lane. He goes back down around. He comes back up. The third time he gets up there, here comes, this was back in the 60s, here comes a whole bunch of hippies and some Volkswagen vans.
Yeah.
And so he had to go back around, and he was getting a little nervous and everything. So he pulled off in the medium there to kind of collect his wits and everything. Before he knew it, they jacked his car up, put 4 new tires on it and a tank full of gas, and told him to get back out there. He was running in second place.
Well, Berlin Lamb claimed he went up to Washington, D.C. driving a truck from Mettler, and said he couldn't figure out how to get off the loop to get a building he's supposed to deliver to, and said he saw it but he couldn't get off, and said he went on around the loop and come back and he couldn't figure it out, so he went around the loop and come back again, and there's a cop sitting there writing a ticket, and he said he pulled over and asked him, said, "How do I get to that place over yonder?" And the cop said, "I don't know how to get over there. If you'll just wait, he's already been to them Mettler trucks, so here you just get behind the next and follow him."
Well, I tell you, you can really get tangled up down in D.C. We were up there partying one weekend many years ago, and we got down in one of the sections of Washington, D.C., and it was about like going to that speech the other night. We didn't have a clue of how to get out of that place. So finally, this Washington City policeman pulled us over.
Yeah.
And so help me, he happened to be from Greensboro. He was
Have you ever met anybody who wasn't from North Carolina?
Greensboro originally, and he said, "I'm going to lead you boys out here," but said, "You ain't got no business being down in this part of town anyhow." So he led us out to where we could find our way. We were going back to Charlottesville, Virginia, is where we were going.
Yeah, I got hung up there one time too. I found this park and got on a bus.
Yeah. Well, what do you think? Well, let me say this. You know, you informed me here a while back that there was a lady trying to get in touch with the brother or whatever. Well, she and another lady came by today.
Mm-hmm.
And those ladies are very concerned and active about politics and whatever.
Well, I don't know who the other one was, but I know the one I'm talking about. She got a good bunch of recipes too. Boy,
she is a good cook, huh?
Yeah, buddy.
But I'll tell you what, these ladies, they're well informed. Surprised me the interest that they was taking in this upcoming election.
We need to get more people interested because our
Oh,
taxes
yeah, I
are
can tell you
going
how
up.
much interest I'm taking in it. You know, there's nothing wrong with putting a sign, vote for John Smith or whoever you want to on your property, okay? And of course, they like for you to get them up as soon as the elections are over and that sort of thing. In fact, you can even put the signs places where you ordinarily would not be able to put signs. But I want to put a sign out here. It says this: forgive and pray for Cliff Jennings and David Young, for they knew what they were doing, but don't vote for them.
They'd have to stop and read that.
Yeah.
Instead, they'd have to stop to read all that, and then they wouldn't know what they'd read.
Hey, it'll be in big print. You know that big sign I had up there? That's what I'm going to put it on. Put it down here on your property.
Well, that's always good to know.
Well,
I'm going to furnish you with a helmet and a bulletproof vest.
You need to put it up there on that light pole that's on me. They got up there surveying that corner.
Right?
Found out that light pole sitting on me too.
Is it?
Yeah.
Tomorrow is the last
Not
day.
on the right of way, right? It's
No, it's on me.
Tomorrow's the last day to withdraw.
No, well, the
And
light withdrawal,
the
but
10th
not, you done passed registration.
Right, but tomorrow's the
That's
last
for
day
the
to do it.
county.
Yeah, I guess the state's got.
I guess.
It's not for the city.
No, there ain't no city.
There ain't no city. Is there anything in the city?
The city will have an election this year on some two councilmen, won't they?
But
Huh?
It's in December.
Yeah, I know that, but
Okay.
when's the registration's what we're talking about.
okay, I see what you're saying.
Some say you got a longer time, man, I'm sure.
I see what you're saying. I hadn't thought about that part. But after tomorrow, those who do not withdraw will be
On the ballot anyhow.
Yeah, and they'll be up for discussion as to their past conduct and whatever else, and answerable to that.
Right.
To defend.
Too hard a time.
Anyhow.
Now Virgil, you know, he's very vulnerable.
Yeah, he's very runnable.
Well, now Virgil has been vetted at least 20 times.
It'll be interesting to see how it goes. Got a little bit of a whiff of information, and it come kind of second-handed.
Take a whip, take a whip, take a whip on me.
Well, this had to do with voting machines.
No, I understand that.
And that's pretty serious business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That the voting machines, somewhere along the line, in the past, have been, what would you say?
Compromised.
Compromised. Yeah, I was thinking maybe tampered
In other
with.
words, tinkered with.
Tinkered with, or something like
In
that.
other words, rigged.
Rigged, or something along
Okay.
those ways. And I thought that was pretty interesting, and came pretty straight. Or I thought it did. It was about second-handed.
Well, you know,
but,
you almost had one of our finest indicted for that sort of thing, but somehow or another the grand jury failed to indict.
that would be an interesting question once everybody has become a candidate and whatever, to at least let it be denied.
Yeah, I'd ask them, have you ever tinkered with the voting machines?
Yeah, or know anything about such.
Right, or know anything about it?
Right. And that'd be an interesting subject for discussion.
That depends on what your definition of is.
Is.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Have is the past tense of is.
I thought been was.
Have been, yeah.
Okay.
Well, that
Have done it.
Is it anything like a has been?
Yeah, that's what we got. A couple of has-beens running.
Well, I'll tell you what, we have been down to Digger Wilson's and got us some propane because this building's kind of cool, and I come in here and lit it up. We've been using that one tank here all winter, and so far we ain't froze to death. And 562-5444 right in the middle of the road.
No, 562-5444.
Yeah, oh, not 5444?
No, it's 5444.
Okay, 5444. I reckon I got it right that time.
did I catch your line?
And he will sell you propane for your heater, and if you want to get some of that advanced flavored for your grill, he's got that in too. You get some of that hickory smoke flavored, maybe some of that there vanilla, and 562-5444.
Yeah, 562-5444.
Yeah.
We brought in some tanks the other day from Diggers, and he had filled them so full.
You had to get the forklift to unload them?
They spilled out on the way up, didn't they?
Well, they were sitting out there, and you can smell the propane.
Ain't one of them you got off me, is it?
No, I don't know, but you can hear it spew a little.
Yeah, I had one of them once.
Yeah, sitting in the sun, it'll expand.
Yeah, and I remember I had one of them tanks that I permanently loaned your brother too.
Okay.
And there's one of them up there aggravating in warm weather. It'd be in there, and you walk by, and it didn't smell real pleasant. It wasn't that hickory smoke flavor. It was that there forklift flavor.
That egg flavor.
Yeah.
The
egg's not doing it justice.
we was having a problem with our forklift, and since we solved that problem, we're using a whole lot less propane, about half as much it seems like. I believe we were kind of hipping the greenhouse effect or whatever. Did you see a documentary the other night on this called Climate Change Now? It was a 1 hour documentary. I believe it was NBC. I don't know the letters. Same old stuff about the Arctic ice melting and whatever else. And I kept waiting. If the ice, which I'm sure it is melting some, but they said that it was due to the temperature of the ocean water becoming warmer down deep. And I never did hear an explanation as to how that
the heat got down there.
The heat got down deep in the ocean to heat these icebergs from the ice cap from the bottom. But there was never ever anything else, another mention made of the magnetic north moving on us.
Well, let's see if we can agree on something.
Okay.
Do you agree that Greenland is part of the Arctic?
I don't believe all of us below the Arctic Circle.
Not all of it.
Is the Arctic designated by a certain
look, we agree that it's one of the poles, and you've got the Antarctic, which is the South Pole, and most people...
Oh, I thought you said Greenland.
Well, I am, but most people agree that the South Pole, Antarctica, is increasing ice. But they're saying that the Arctic is melting. Okay. Well, I'm asking is Greenland part of the Arctic? Now, I know that it's not all inside the Arctic Circle, but some of it is. It's on that end, right?
Right. It's up, yeah.
Well, now, if you remember back in 1941, we were, during that Lend-Lease thing, we were flying some P-38s
P-38s,
to let England borrow to fight their war with, and they run out of gas, and they parked their airplanes up there in Greenland.
They landed them on that ice cap.
Yeah, and so here comes the Navy or somebody come through and picked them up, and they never did get around going back getting them airplanes.
Right.
So this guy up here at Cumberland Gap, Middlesboro, he got a wild hair and went out there back in the early 90s, and they bored a hole down there, melted a hole down there, and brought that airplane up a piece at a time, went down 260-something feet.
Under snow and ice.
Yeah, that had all accumulated there since 1941.
That's right.
Well, if we've had so much polar melt, how in the devil did we get that much ice on top of them airplanes?
Well, also, those airplanes ought to be sitting out there free and clear and ready to take off now, shouldn't
Well, I would think so.
I would think so.
Well, you know, they found all those gun emplacements over in Belgium, I believe it was, right, or Belgium or France, in there. And it says, oh, the ice is melting, the world's getting warmer because it exposed these guns. Well, they didn't take into effect or mention the fact that these guns were anchored in solid soil. That when they were put there, there was no ice or anything to cover them up with. And since the First World War, that's when it occurred, they had been covered by hundreds of feet of ice and snow, and they just had melted back down where it was not even as warm as it was back in 1915, 1916.
Well, they found some fella over there that had been frozen in the ice, and he was so well preserved, they started trying to figure out who he was.
Right.
And come find out he was about 5,000 years old.
Right.
And he had been froze there that long, and the ice had melted enough that somebody found him. So they're saying that's just pure evidence of global warming. They don't take into account the fact that he wasn't born under that ice. He got covered up. It's
right.
just the fact that it's as warm now as it was 5,000 years ago don't mean that we're in any change anything.
Right.
Nothing new going on there.
Well, up through the Alps, they have had various mining operations that were buried under snow. And they now are thawing up enough that they're finding, like I say, they found a man under the ice, but they're also finding tools and everything where they've been going in there and walking in there by hand and mining this different metals they were mining back in the 1700s. And they don't account the fact, they account for the fact it's getting warm now, they don't account for the fact it was warm back then.
Well, I heard Rush Limbaugh today talking about an article, and I looked it up and read it. There was a guy by the name of Moon something. He writes for a newspaper up there in New Jersey, but he wrote about that back in the 80s there was a scientific consensus, and I mean, it was so well accepted, I didn't think there was any argument about it anymore, that fat, both saturated and polyunsaturated fats and different fats you eat, and eating cholesterol and eggs and stuff would give you heart disease. But they have done a study of 600,000 people or something like that and come to the conclusion, 70-something different studies come to the conclusion that there ain't no correlation between that stuff and heart disease.
No.
They're not saying that you won't be healthier in some way, but they're kind of leaning more toward maybe that, well, I think where it all comes down is moderation, and anything is what is better for you. You don't want to eat too much sugar, you don't eat too much lard.
They have since determined that it was not that was causing cholesterol, it was carbohydrates.
Yeah, no, just the opposite.
Yeah.
But this same guy said, but now we're faced with the same situation here where the consensus is that global warming is a fact and all that. And then he cited this guy by the name of Freeman Dyson, who people will argue is the smartest man in the world. Supposedly he calculated the number of atoms in the sun when he was 5 years old. And he's just somebody that really knows his stuff. He's 92 or 93 years old. And he says that their computer models, in order to make them do what they want to do, they put a fudge factory in there and they get the results they're looking for. He said people got too much of their career invested in this thing. There's a consensus, ain't no way to run science. And while it may be true that that man is contributing to global warming, they're not taking into account of clouds, and clouds have to do with sunspots, and sunspots are cyclical, and so that's one thing they're fudging out. And oh, by the way, let's suppose that they are making more CO2. There's more evidence that that's good for the earth than there is that man's causing it to start with. And that's true too, I think. Well, you fellas about warm?
Oh yeah, it's comfortable.
Yeah, we're doing.
I'd like to turn it down a little.
Yeah.
Well, if man is causing a significant amount of global warming, which I'm not convinced really that it's warming all that much. If man is, a lot of it has to do with urban sprawl.
Yes, sir.
Because it is always warmer in an urban area than it is in the outlying districts. And some cities are big enough that they can cause the invective winds to rise as a result of a warming over the cities, not only creating warmth, but also creating some wind conditions. And then when they come in on global, climate change, I'm firmly convinced that we have better reporting of storms now, so naturally you're getting a better reporting, but also that there are more things in the way of these storms to be torn up. You know, 100 years ago, if one had come through over here at Wartburg and everything over there, it might not have got but about one house. There would not have been one mobile home in the area.
No, they didn't even build them yet.
When I hear these newscasts, that's something I always ask myself. They give us statistics to how many houses have burned or been blown away or whatever else. If the houses weren't there, they wouldn't got blown away or flooded.
You remember when that hurricane come through Florida and just cut several hundred miles?
Hugo.
Yeah. Yeah, but if it had gone through there 100 years before, they wouldn't tore down a house because it wasn't none.
That's right.
It might have torn down one of them halfway teepees.
I doubt it. They had enough sense not to build there.
This documentary I'm telling you about, half of the time was taken up with people who had been dislocated, their houses, and they're telling you about what this was all of my whatever, this or that. And I don't see as how what you're saying that had anything to do with the climate part or even the storm.
It's a sympathy.
Well, it's a sympathy. If you'll watch one of these reports and try to figure out how much actual fact there is in there, and not only that, they listen to when they make a statement. Most of the time they'll put a if, or they'll put some sort of a disclaimer in there that boils down to what they're saying is nothing more than their opinion of something.
Well, climatology and psychology are two of the most inexact sciences in the world.
In the summary of this thing, the guy there who was an expert boiled down to saying that you couldn't prove none of it one way or the other, is what it boiled down to.
I don't think you can find anybody that would argue that without plant life, there'd be no life. Because I don't care where you never eat a weed, you only eat meat. Sooner or later, you get right back to if it don't grow as begin as plant life, we don't have any food. Therefore, there's no life on Earth. And if you were to eliminate all of the CO2, we'd die, and there wouldn't be nothing left to eat. But an abundance of CO2 and warmer climates will necessarily provide more food, and it's going to be better for the people. Whether you like people or not, it's a different thing. But you can't argue with that. I mean, if it's true, if it's every word of it true, we're not going to have
about them dry land turtles that are down there?
We're not going to have no runaway global warming. We're just going to have food to eat.
Right.
What turtles is that?
I think global warming is good.
For everybody except Digger.
They stated that the ocean level had increased by approximately 1 foot over the last 100 years.
Well, I've seen it anywhere from 2 inches to a foot too.
Well, and possibly over the next 100 years, as we go, that would rise another foot.
Well, do you think that could be attributed to global warming, or the sediments that are going down these main tributaries that's filling the ocean up and causing the level to rise?
Could be all that dirt that's been covered. You know, all that dirt covers up in our ancient cities. It's got to be that amount falling in the ocean too.
Well, erosion definitely takes up a certain amount of volume.
Well, I want to ask you something. Now, I know that people are smart and they figured this out, but how in the world do you measure the ocean within a foot anyway? You never find it completely still.
Not only that, you'd have to measure it exactly the same. You see, the ocean level is determined by gravitational pull of the moon.
That's correct.
So, I think we don't. Most people out here don't think this thing any further than.
Well, they say that the level of the Pacific Ocean is different from the level of the Atlantic Ocean.
Well, that's what amazes me, though. Now you think about it. How do you go about measuring that within a foot? That's like that time Harry Smith come out and said last year was the warmest year we've had in so long, and the longest, the warmest it's been in 1,000 years. And 1,001 year ago it was 1 degree warmer, and I'm thinking, and they invented the thermometer in 1714, and he knows what was going on 1,000 years ago to the 1 degree.
Right. Well, that's very, very true. You know, they are assuming that what is happening now is a normal. That any deviation from what is happening now, or 10 years ago, or during the time we've been taking temperatures and measurements, that anything that deviates from that particular model is bad. Even though the world has deviated from those temperatures and those amounts of rainfall and everything, there was so much rainfall that produced all this lush growth back in the past that they could support the life of dinosaurs and everything else. You know, a dinosaur, if he come across this country now, would have to carry his lunch.
Well, them dinosaurs is scarce.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, we definitely consume energy, and we're hooked on it. We're going to consume energy as long as it's there. We're going to ride instead of walk, if at all possible, or fly instead of drive.
If you
do, but what happens when you consume energy? I mean,
you change.
What really happens?
Well, energy, as we know it, for the largest whatever, it boils down to the expansion either of water or gases or whatever that produce light. Mechanical.
About light. Doesn't light have energy?
Light has energy.
Unless you're dealing with nuclear energy, you're not destroying anything, you're not changing anything that can't be undone.
You're changing the form of it. So,
what Bob's saying is when you go out there and burn a gallon of kerosene, everything come out of it still here. You put the heat back in it in the right way, you still have kerosene.
Nothing ever leaves or comes in either. It just changes.
I don't really believe they have it figured out right on petroleum. I think petroleum is a natural occurring thing, not associated with dinosaurs dying and trees falling. I think most of it occurs when these little plantains that are in the ocean, by the trillion, almost as many as Obama's budget, that fall to the bottom, that decay, and they turn into oil, which has different channels. You know, I think maybe possibly sometime in the future, all the oil wells back in Texas might fill back up.
Well, they've found some that seem to be bottomless, and the argument is that methane through several different channels ends up underground, and you take methane and mix it with moisture under heat and pressure and you get petroleum.
Yeah. So, you know, they
Now-
just think they've had things figured out.
Now, if you happen to have any mater juice in a jar and you leave it long enough, you'll get something worse than petroleum. And whenever you drink some of it, you might want to take Bob's advice. And what
Right.
would your advice be, Bob?
They want to call Vital Care at 562-9370. It's Tender Loving Care, TLC. They're a privately owned company. They've got 40-some years experience. They don't cost you one penny on your tax bill to provide the equipment, the personnel, the gas, and the time and the know-how to come and transport you where you need to go in a medical situation. They're the only ambulance service in this county, and maybe the next county too, I don't know, that has a mobile ventilator where if you're on life support, you can be transported from one medical facility to another one using their mobile ventilator. So you just call them. If you can't remember the number, just call 911 and tell them you want Vital Care. Tell them Bob said give you Vital Care.
Yeah, that's the thing to do.
Gentlemen, change the subject a little. This morning, there was a gentleman, and I believe his Dr. Barrett's was interviewed by Halloran
Hilton Hill.
Hill, yeah,
Okay.
right. And this gentleman was given a talk in Oak Ridge, and it was concerned about education, if I'm not mistaken. But he made a statement about education, and that is that we have come up with all these programs since back in the 50s. You name it, every kind of child left behind or whatever. There's been about 5 or 6, maybe more significant movements, government, whatever, on education. But anyhow, he said that we have not improved as far as our kindergarten through 12 in about 50 years.
I think we regressed.
Okay.
I don't think if we regressed, we would have got better.
This, I hear talk, and this conversation went 2 or 3 different ways, but it came around to the Titan computer at Oak Ridge, and he states that it's the world's fastest computer. We have all this information, computer and whatever else, and they went on to say about all the things that are going on in Oak Ridge as far as discovery, everything you want to name. Yeah, I ask myself, I don't hear of all these great advancements coming out of Oak Ridge. Is there something that I'm missing? Or, in other words, you take this computer that can make trillions and trillions of decisions per second.
Calculations.
Yeah. What problems has this thing solved? If it can make, which I'm not questioning that it cannot make these decisions, but why are we not solving our problems just one right after the other? And whenever, like in many, many situations, when you solve one problem, it leads to the solution to several others.
There's creation of several more.
Well, yeah, but why are we not, I don't understand, just like when we talk about energy, if this with this computer and computers all over the world or whatever, why do we not have an answer to every question there is out there, especially energy? Why do we not have a source of energy that's inexhaustible, safe, clean, and whatever else? And why is that not coming out of Oak Ridge?
Well, first of all, the only answer that the computer can give is what's been programmed into it. It has no independent thinking capabilities.
Guy go,
Huh?
garbage
Right.
in, garbage out.
Right?
Okay, but still yet, let me put it this way. If there was a solution to cheap, clean, renewable, everything energy, and when I say cheap and whatever,
Right.
why is that not coming out of Oak Ridge? We're coming out with all sorts of weaponry and everything else.
The big movement is not to solve our energy needs. It is to reduce population. when you worship the earth and want to return it to a pristine condition, man is the enemy. Now, you can think of it like this. At one time, we didn't burn any petroleum products at all.
We didn't have it. It wasn't. That's right.
The life expectancy was about 40 years old.
And the population was very small.
If you want to go back to that, to zero fossil fuels, we can do that. But you're going to have to learn to accept half the life expectancy that we enjoy now too.
But also,
if they say all these chemicals are killing us, why
Take
in the
a long
world are
time to
people
kill 'em.
living longer
Yeah,
with chemicals?
we're going to in order to do that, though, we got to give up what we consider to be our conveniences.
Yeah.
Be that electric automobile,
Yeah, and
chainsaw.
surgery and penicillin and staying
Yeah,
warm
see,
in
so
the
many
winter.
of those things, I was born before they ever happened. Okay?
I know, but you were not. You. If they had never happened, you probably,
I probably
wouldn't be here now.
alive.
Well,
Sure.
I could go back and say, well, were it not for the medical profession and all that, I wouldn't be here. I mean, that's the
Well, I wouldn't either.
Short
I'd
and
never
simple.
been born.
Yeah.
well. There you go.
Well,
that-
that's like me. I had a ruptured appendix when I was 20 years old. You know, if it had happened when my dad was 20 years old, he would have died.
that's right.
But yeah, you know, the Lewis and Clark, they went on that expedition. They waded snow up to their waist and done all sorts of things. They lost one guy on the whole trip, and he died from appendicitis. Because there wasn't nothing they do for him.
Right? Was that on the bird expedition or what?
No,
that was
Lewis and Clark.
Lewis and
Oh,
Clark.
Lewis and Scott. Okay, yeah. Well, you know, Lewis was from Tennessee, I believe, wasn't he?
Yeah, where was Clark from? North Carolina?
What?
Was Clark from North Carolina?
No. Well,
Well, Lewis
Clark,
ended
no, Clark was from Tennessee.
He's the one that ended up killing himself, wasn't he?
Yeah, I
And
think
the
so.
gun disappeared. It's
Yeah.
kind of like when Clark
And-
Kent
and-
killed
In
himself.
fact, I know one of his relatives, a direct descendant of Clark, and yeah, Clark was from Tennessee. I'm not sure where Lewis was from.
Meriwether Lewis.
Huh?
Meriwether Lewis.
Meriwether.
What was the Clark's first name? Wasn't George Rogers, was it? No.
And I'm pretty sure that Clark was pretty closely associated with Tennessee. I'm not real sure whether he was born here or not, but
Well, he died. I can't spell that. He died Natchez Trace down there in Tennessee or North Alabama, Tennessee, I guess.
Didn't he sort of end up drinking heavily and whatever else?
I think he was probably bipolar or something.
Gentlemen, we're running out of time, but there's the mayor of Knoxville, Miss O'Hara,
Mm-hmm.
read an article the other day, and she's stressing that we need to be more densely populated in the metro areas, that it increases our health and
What
whatever
does?
else by being more densely populated.
Oh,
but
you know, pulling out
I've
of
got a
they disproved
Does that-
that with mice.
Well,
I've got
they,
a book with an article in it that shows that this world could stand about 3 times the population that's in it, and they do it mainly by how many calories of food are produced and how many are needed. And in this article it said you could house all the people in the world in high-rise apartments in the state of Tennessee, and that most of the food that it would take to feed them could be grown in North America and South America.
They what?
Most of the food to feed
if-
all the people of the world could be produced
Yeah,
in North America and South America.
the thing, this
You couldn't
theory.
do it in California. You got to water smelt.
Well, this theory would not work due to the fact that if you've got to raise food or anything that you do, you've got to have your people that do this, unless it's all done by machine, within a certain distance, because you can't transport everybody from the high rise in Tennessee to South Texas every day.
I know that, yeah.
They're going to have to live on site or
yeah,
somewhere nearby.
yeah. Where was he born, did you say?
No, I figured. He was born in 1774, so there wasn't no United States then. Born in Albemarle County, Virginia.
Okay.
He died out there just south of,
okay.
Nashville. And
How about Clark?
that's what I'm going to find out here.
I thought he had something to do with, what's the state on the east side of the Mississippi River?
Tennessee?
No, opposite Missouri.
Who
That's
did what?
Arkansas.
Illinois?
I believe somewhere up there. That's what I was thinking.
Tennessee's
But I might be wrong.
also opposite Missouri.
And Arkansas.
Yeah,
And Memphis is across
it's
from
on the
Arkansas.
other side.
Yeah, on the other side.
William Clark. A native of Virginia, he grew up in pre-state Kentucky before later settling in what became the state of Missouri. That's Clark.
Missouri, okay.
Yeah.
How about that?
And
Yeah.
I think they had done a little of this work before, hadn't they? Hadn't they done some sort of a little, or some sort of a exploration of another territory and area at one time before
I
they
think
did
they've
that?
done some surveying.
So, okay, maybe that's what it was.
We're going to have to say TTFN, which is
Yeah, well,
Spanish for Tata for now.
Yeah, yeah. I'll be the same.
Yeah. Saturday, 1450 WLAL for right back here at UG TV. 4
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock. See you.
There you go.